Hello, everybody. This is Mike from Nymphs, Knots, and Nonsense. And today I want to talk about Stillwater leaders, specifically an indicator leader, and how I build mine and how I use them. So today I have a leader with me. I'm going to go through how I build it because I tie my own, tie them at home, and I tie extra and give them to people whenever they need them. So I start out with Maxima, and I have 40-pound Maxima. I go 40-pound Maxima, then to 30-pound, so 30-pound, and then to 25-pound, and that's my butt section. And the way that that looks is I take the 40-pound and I do a perfection loop. So that's just a simple perfection loop there. I grab the end of that, I shoot it out hard where it meets my shoulder, I cut it, and then I tie on the next section with a blood knot. Okay, so blood knot there, then same thing. I'll take that out. And the reason that I do that, it's just a quick, easy way to get 2 feet or 60 centimeters. So I take that, shoot that out, tie it off there, tie another blood knot. Now for these, with the thicker material, I'll use 4 wraps. And then for the last one, where I go down to 25-pound, the 25-pound, which is the lightest of the chameleon that I use, I'll use 5 wraps on the blood knot. Doesn't really make that much difference. Somewhere like 4 to 5 to 6 wraps and you'll be totally okay. It's just that thicker, the stuff is really thick and it's stiff, so it's a little bit harder to make a blood knot with the 40-pound Maxima when you make 6 turns. Just makes it a little bit harder to make that particular knot. Okay. Then once I get down to the 25-pound Maxima, at the end of that, I'll tie another perfection loop. I will use 12-pound Maxima, but an ultra green. And the reason I use ultra green is because my local club water has a lot of algae in it. It's got a lot of phytoplankton that is actually in the water. And the water does have a green tint and it's incredibly clear. So I'll use that ultra green to try to match the water. But here I've got a perfection loop, and just a loop-to-loop connection. Okay? And the reason that I do that is this part of my leader is a variable size. So normally for my local club, I'll do this at 6 feet, which is the same. I measure it the same way. Simple. I grew up in the mountains. You try to keep it as simple as possible. Okay, and I was in the infantry. But I take this part, stretch out my arm, and wherever that is in my hand, that's where I cut it off and tie on the next component. That's for our local club water, but our local club water, the deepest spot is maybe 10 feet. And so if I have 6 feet here plus another, plus another 2 feet, that means I can go down to 8 feet deep and not worry about it. And so that works in almost all situations that I'll have on that water. Okay. In fact, most of the time I'm setting an indicator a lot closer to the fly end of this 12-pound Maxima than I am at the butt section side of it. Okay. So then at the end of that, I have a barrel swivel, and this is the smallest barrel swivel in the universe. It's incredibly tiny. You can see it compared to my thumb. It's the smallest that I could find on Amazon, and I use that because it doesn't have a lot of weight. Okay, it still has some weight, and it helps to carry the fly down. But also, it's above the fly. It's not good if you have it below the fly. Okay, or it doesn't. It's not a good idea to have a lot of extra weight there. Now, I've got a regular improved clinch knot here, improved clinch knot on the other side of the barrel swivel. And then I run, roughly 12 inches of 2X fluorocarbon. Then at the end of that 2X fluorocarbon, I have another improved clinch knot that goes to a tippet ring. So that's a trout tippet ring, which they advertise it's a 20 or 25 pound tippet ring. It is still, it's 2 millimeters. So this, the smallest tippet ring that they have. And then on that tippet ring, I run 2 strands of 4X fluorocarbon. One is about 12 inches, maybe a little bit more. I've gone up to 18 inches, not a big deal. And then the other side here, I have a 6 to 8 inch section of still 4X fluorocarbon, and that serves as my dropper. So normally what I do when I rig this up is I'll put a big heavy fly on the end here. So we're talking a micro leech, a beadhead, bloodworm. I've got videos for how to do all these. Um, Maybe even a little streamer, dragonfly nymph, something that's big and heavy, that'll sort of hold this whole thing upright. Then on this upper line or the dropper, I'll tie something that's natural, that's unweighted, so that way it has a lot more movement. So what I'm talking here is something like a size 14 or size 16 gold rib hare's ear or a pheasant tail, like something that looks natural. Another strategy that I do is the thing that's on the bottom, big, heavy, weighted, and flashy. So sometimes I'll even tie a rainbow warrior, just something that's flashy, that's big, that's heavy. While this fly is a lot more natural, and something that's a lot more subdued in color, right? So gold rib hare's ear with no bead looks pretty natural. It's pretty subdued, and so I can see, do the fish want flashy? Do they want more natural looking? I can kind of cover my bases there and not worry about the light changing, the hatch coming off, all of that stuff. I sort of can cover two different bases at the same time. Now, this section here of 12-pound Maxima and ultra green, if I'm on a deeper lake and I want to get down to say 20 feet deep, I can actually take this. I've got the loop-to-loop connector here. I can pop the loop off. I made the loops big enough that I can slide the full indicator through, and I'll take this and replace it with a longer section of Maxima. Okay. Down to, I can put a good 18 feet on there. It casts horrible, but that's okay because you're fishing down so far. It doesn't really matter how far you can cast. And I'll use a pegged indicator. Okay. So a pegged indicator, I have a bunch of these things. They look like this. They've got this part. This is the actual peg. This is the indicator, and it's got a hole through it, right? So you can actually see my eyeball through it. And the peg itself has a hole through it. So the way that you use it is, I've got some mono here. You take the mono and you slide it through the peg, and you take the whole thing and put it through. You usually do it with the fat end up towards me. You could do it either way. I don't know if it necessarily matters. That's just how I do it. And so these two can slide independently from each other. And what you do in order to fix this is you find the depth that you want your flies to be at. One of the tricks that I use at the club is I'll tie on a really, really bright beadhead fly on the bottom of the leader, and I'll just flip that over the dock, watch it go down until it looks like it's this far or 6 inches off the bottom, and then that's where I'll set my indicator at, the height that I'll set my indicator at. So when I cast out past that, I know that I'm above the bottom, right? Ideally, you want to be, when you start out, new water, you've never been there before, you want to be 12 inches, 30 centimeters to 24 inches or 60 centimeters off the bottom, because that's where the fish that's where they eat bloodworms. That's where they start eating chironomid pupa as the pupa ascend, and then they'll move their way up. But that's a good starting depth. Now, in order to set this, all you do is you just take the mono and you make a little loop. So you see a little loop right there, and then you just jam it in, just jam it in, right? And you'll see it sticks out. I try to take this loop that's sticking out here and try to make it as small as I can, because sometimes if you if you cast it horribly, like I do sometimes, the rest of the leader will actually slide down and catch on that, and then it'll foul you up, and then basically that cast is a mulligan. You have to pull it up, unmess it, which is usually pretty quick. You're like, oh, okay, pop it off that, and then cast it again. But in the meantime, you're casting and it's sitting out there, and you don't know that your leader is not at the right depth, and it's all next to your indicator and stuff. So I normally try to keep that as small. Now, the reason that you use the peg is when you catch a fish and they pull, it all pops like that. It pulls that loop right out, and then the indicator and the peg slide all the way down to where the fish is at and where your fly is at, and you can get that super long section of maxima in through the guides of your rod. Where if you had a fixed indicator on your line, you can't get that indicator up through the tip top of your rod. And so you might run into the situation where you've got a fish, but you can't actually land it because, well, you got this indicator keeping you from pulling the fish closer. So you need a buddy who has a net who can go catch the fish. So that's my pegged indicator, and I carry quite a few of these. Just throw them in my bag, and if I need to, I have them. One thing that I've been using a lot of lately is the Oros indicators. These are a little foam ball, and if you grab them and pull them, like you just untwist them, because there's a screw in there. So there's a screw in there and then kind of a nut there, and that screw has a little slot. So in order to use these, you find the depth that you want to set your indicator at. You slide that maxima through that slot, right, like that, and then screw the other side on, and then screw them back together. And I usually take 3 fingers and 3 fingers like this, and then push together and twist, and now it's locked in there. Pretty cool, and it's semi-fixed, so it doesn't slide like the pegged indicator. So obviously you're not going to use it if your indicator needs to be set at something more than, say, 9 feet deep, which is the length of your rod. It's related. Then you want to use a pegged indicator. Okay. If it's below 9 feet or 8 feet, then zero problem using an Oros, and you can unscrew it just a little bit, slide it up, slide it down, and then screw it back together. Okay. Now these come in sizes. This is the small size, and you see, face for scale. And then there's the extra small. Most of the time, if I'm fishing an indicator in Stillwater and I'm not doing any kind of retrieve, I'm just cast, sit, maybe a small, very, very slow figure 8 retrieve, I'll use these extra small. You can see face for scale. These things are pretty tiny, but if you get into any kind of wind, wave action, stuff like that, then you might want to switch and go up a size, or maybe even 2 sizes, but I wouldn't go any bigger than a medium unless you're throwing really, really big junk flies out there that will pull your indicator down. The last thing that I want to talk about is how I actually store these and carry these inside my pack. Now, I'll just make a loop of these, and it's really simple. All you do is you grab next to the perfection loop, you spread your fingers quite a bit, and then you wrap around your fingers like it's a spool. So like this from the side. Takes about 10 seconds to do. You'll feel all the little objects as they go through your fingers here as you wrap them. I'm getting pretty close. That was a split shot. That was tippet ring. Then once you're done with looping everything around, you'll see I've got a couple ends here that stick out where my flies would go. Now I take the perfection loop, back it off one time around, and then I will shoot it through the inside of the loop and basically just wrap it around the outside of that loop. Throw my little tippet in there like that, so that make sure that our tippet gets captured in there. And it takes 8 or so wraps around the outside of this thing in order to secure it off. And that is done, right? That last little bit just gets tucked in there. And that is done. I've got a bunch of little Ziploc bags. Don't laugh, because my policy is the first leader I give you is free. After that, I charge $200 a piece. Same with flies. The first fly I give people on the water is free. After that, they're $30 a piece. But in order to be a crack dealer like this, you need crack dealer bags. And so that's what I'm doing, is I'm just taking the leader and just pushing it inside of the bag. Okay, like that, closing out the Ziploc, and that is done. And then other than that, on the water, when I go out and go fishing, I carry a spool of 2X fluorocarbon, a spool of 2X fluorocarbon, a spool of 25-pound ultra green Maxima, 12-pound ultra green Maxima, and a little Ziploc bag like that with a handful of extra barrel swivels and a handful of tippet rings. The tippet rings themselves come on a little snap swivel, so the kind that you like snap around a spinner or something. So I have some of those that stay in a Ziploc bag inside of my leader wallet, so that no matter what happens on the water, I can go pull out the pieces, rebuild a leader right there. It's not very hard to do, but I can do it on the water. Or if it's easier, which sometimes it is, I can go into my leader wallet, grab a completely new leader, add an indicator, add 2 flies, swap it out with the leader that I have on my line, and I'm back in the water, and it takes me 2 to 3 minutes to do. Having said all that, I am still Mike. I am still from Nymphs, Knots, and Nonsense. I have given you almost all the information that I have about Stillwater indicator leaders. I will see you on the water, and I will see you in the next video.